First, welcome to today's webinar. It's entitled Examining Biases Within Your Program, Tips for Supporting All Faculty. We appreciate you joining us today, as we know that your time is very valuable. So just thank you again, especially right after a busy holiday weekend, and I hope everyone enjoyed their time with their friends and their family. So before we get started in introducing the panelists, we will be having a live Q&A session following the presentation. So if you do have any questions, you'll see two areas that you can pose those questions. One is in the Q&A section within Zoom, and the other is in the chat. So Anna and Joanna will be able to field any questions at the conclusion of their presentation. So let me tell you a little bit about our presenters. So Anna Williams has been a registered nurse for 10 years and has been in nursing education since 2018. She's currently teaching at the University of Arkansas Little Rock School of Nursing. She teaches mental health and obstetrical nursing theory and simulation, and her research includes initiatives through the Center for Simulation Innovation, of which Joanna is the director. Joanna is the director of simulation and an assistant professor at the University of Arkansas Little Rock School of Nursing as well. She holds 2 bachelor's degrees, a master's degree, and is currently pursuing her PhD in change leadership for equality and inclusion at the University of Central Arkansas. She's the director of one of the largest simulation centers in Arkansas, and she has the privilege of working with the most exceptional team of faculty and staff in their Center for Simulation of Innovation, of which, like I mentioned, that Anna's a key member of, and that has been named the Anaxel Frontline Simulation Champion Excellence Team Award winner in June of 2023. Her research and grant work centers largely around diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives in nursing education and simulation. So now I'll turn it over to Anna and Joanna.
Perfect. Thank you, Brian, for that introduction. I'm Anna, and this is Joanna, just so you know when we're talking. But today we want to get started, and we want to talk to everybody about DEI and simulation and how to integrate DEI and simulation with your faculty buy-in. So our objectives for this presentation are to understand different degrees of faculty buy-in for the integration of DEI and simulation. We also want you to be able to walk away with some actionable interventions to enhance DEI utilization in simulation. And last but not least, because we love data, we want you to be able to walk away and understand how to utilize data to drive the DEI-related process and practice change. So, before I get started with this disclaimer, we usually give this disclaimer in our simulations and our classrooms before we get started, because we may have some charged content that we're talking about, and we want to make sure that we are setting good ground rules for this before we get started, because we all know that if you're here, likely you're passionate about what we're talking about. So what this space is, it is a respectful, brave space. If you joined us at the Odin conference, we presented with the simulation committee about DEI integration into simulation, and we talked about the difference between a safe space and a brave space. So a brave space is a place where your students and yourself have the opportunity to have these tough conversations. Now, what this place is not, it is a space to intentionally divide or criticize. We're not here to talk politics. We're not here to talk religion or anything like that. We obviously know that we're going to have to look at our own biases before we proceed with faculty buy-in, but it's not a place to tear each other down.
All right. So, we are super excited. Anna and I have, she talked about, we presented in San Diego at Odin. We did 2 different presentations face-to-face. This is our first one that is virtual. So we want to try to keep it as interactive as possible. So we'll ask you guys to really quickly take out your smartphone. I would say if you have it, but I'm sure all of you have it. We're all connected to ours. And just take a quick pic of this little QR code, and it's going to take you to a short little survey. We're just trying to kind of test the waters here, see kind of who we've got as far as what current positions are, and also just see a little bit of where you guys are from. So if you guys could take just a second to do that, we would appreciate it. Got some responses coming in.
Yeah, going quick. Love a good QR code.
We live and breathe these QR codes around here. I'm sure our students hate it. Oh, we are all over the board. We'll show you guys these results here in just a second.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people we have in total today. Brian, how many attendees do we have? Putting you on the spot.
We currently have 36.
36, okay.
We're getting there.
So for the sake of time, we'll go ahead and see if we can share these. Can you guys see this on your screen, the results? Sorry, on my phone, I can't. Oh, no worries.
That's okay.
Yes.
Okay. So I think this is always just helpful just to kind of know who's in the room or kind of joining us today. So staff-wise, we have just a handful of staff, only two, a couple administration at 7, and it looks like everybody else is representing from the faculty side that's responded. So that's just kind of interesting. I love this, seeing kind of all over the board where we're from here. We've got literally kind of from coast to coast, north and south, a couple from Illinois, way to represent Illinois, and a couple from Texas. Okay, very cool. Okay, so let's get back at it. We'll move this off to the side. All right, let's dive in.
Okay, so this is an interesting picture, we know, but Joanna and I love a good theme, okay?
Yep.
And it took us a little bit to come up with our theme, right? And like I said before, if you joined us at the Odin conference, then you saw that we had a theme there as well. We wanted to expand on the car theme. So just for a second, let's think about, we want you to think about your dream car. And when you're thinking about your dream car, whatever goes, okay? You're not worried about gas mileage. You're not worried about car payments, having a big car note, because goodness, nobody wants that, right? For fear of speeding tickets, that's me. We just want you to mentally pick your dream car.
Okay, and while you guys are kind of formulating what your dream car looks like in your minds, we're going to tell you a little bit about ours that we chose up here. So Anna and I both had different dream cars. She was more on the train of a little bit more of what you see here, Jeep Wrangler, something super rugged, even though she is well aware that she is not going to be going off-roading anytime soon and would not need it for that.
I could in Arkansas.
True, you could see, but you would have that capability.
Yeah.
I'm more of the avenue. I am a truck driver, and so I'm thinking like an electric truck, like a Rivian, but something still super rugged. Although I am very much on board with this kind of orange color Jeep here. We can totally see ourselves with sunglasses on, tops down, having a good time. So we all have. Hopefully, you guys now have your mental cars selected. Let's see. You guys start typing in the chat. What kind of cars are you guys going to be working with throughout this presentation today? Nobody's got a car. We're all riding the bus together.
Expedition. No,
Expedition,
Jeep.
Jeep.
Nice, I got you. Okay,
Ooh, a
BMW.
BMW.
Okay.
I see you. Okay.
Yes.
Kayla, where are you from? You need to come pick us up.
Yep.
I love that. Ooh, BMW SUV. I'm here for that.
Bentley.
Okay.
Land Rover. I'll make it.
Convertible.
Ram. It's got a Hemi in it.
Oh, I knew somebody was going to throw out a classic, like a 50s Thunderbird. Awesome. So what we'll ask you guys to do is just kind of like hold on to this mental picture as we're going to seriously kind of drive you through this car analogy as we go through DEI and faculty buy-in today.
So you've got your dream car, like Joanna said, but what do you need to make your car go? Well, of course, you're like, Anna, you have to have fuel. You have to have gas, okay? But not only do you have to have fuel, a gas to get your car going, you have to have good tires. Okay, now stick with me. I know that we're adding a lot on this slide. It's going to make sense in a minute. But you want those good sustainable tires, because who's had to buy a round of tires before? Very expensive. Yeah. So also, to keep your car going, you have to have it maintenance. You have to have your oil. Now, yes, I said oil.
She's
It's
from
not,
Wien, Arkansas.
it's not oil, it's oil. Okay, but you have to maintenance your car in order to keep it going. So I really want to drive home. See what I did there? Drive home the symbolism that we're going to be weaving throughout this journey, this presentation with everybody. So when you think DEI, I want you to think about the trail, the journey, this pathway that we have right here on the screen, okay? When you think about the car that you picked, that is going to be faculty buy-in, okay? And then when you think about your fuel, tires, and oil, that's going to be your support needed to keep your car, your people on your DEI journey.
And so if you think about it, if you get your car gassed up, if you get your tires rotated, if you get your oil changed, we can tackle the road ahead. Once that basic stuff for faculty buy-in is in place, then we can really start to enjoy the ride with the windows down and the music up. Cue next graphic. And really begin to see or hear music to our ears, which ultimately is positive outcomes, not just for our students, but also for our faculty. So we join you, or ask you to join us to hit the road with us as we dig a little bit deeper. So first and foremost, if you guys have ever seen Anna and I present like at Odin, we always like to start with why whatever our topic is matters. And DEI is no different than that. So we'll kind of start at the beginning. Though I'm sure there are very different reasons why all of you are here today, we have to know why we're on a particular road or why we're going in a particular direction, and we have to be able to articulate and relay that message to our people to really get them to jump in that car and ride along with us. So a couple of the reasons why we want to highlight really quickly why DEI matters. The moral imperative. We've all heard this one, right? This is the DEI is the right thing to do. People deserve to be treated with respect, regardless of age, race, gender, sexual orientation, all that kind of stuff. And for most of you that are here with us today, I'm sure that we're not telling you anything different, like any new news. But I do want to offer that if you're new to the DEI sphere, you're kind of new to this space, and you don't necessarily align with that statement, you're still welcome here. We're really happy that you've joined us today, and we just want you to know that regardless of your why or your experience level with DEI, that we're really happy and you belong here today. DEI has been around for long enough, though it's getting a lot of attention as far as like on TV and that kind of stuff, and we're talking a lot more about it. The benefits are, we all know the benefits. There's certainly enough that's out there. And so to cloak the concept of DEI with an oversimplified approach of it's just the right thing to do, it just requires that we go kind of the next step. It's time to move beyond the moral imperative and reach a little bit further. So we've got something like the social imperative. This is kind of along the same lines as the moral imperative. It's about belonging, it's about respect, and really in that if we're exposed to DEI-related concepts, it's going to expand our awareness and our personal social responsibility. From the demographic imperative, this is what we all see. We all go out in our nursing programs. We are seeing the obvious changes that are going on in the world around us. We know that today's workforce and our communities, including our school communities, are an increasingly dynamic and diverse mix of different cultures, ages, races, all that kind of stuff. And we have plenty of statistics, including US labor force statistics, that are saying the same thing, that our consumer bases, our talent pools, that all of that is shifting. So you've certainly got that. And then when all else fails, we've got the business imperative. If you're getting some pushback from administration, or you have unsupportive people that are kind of your decision makers within your organization, kind of if nothing else is working, you can oftentimes resort to the business imperative. Basically how this boils down to the bottom line, how diverse policies and practices and whatnot, ultimately how it can save your organization money. And there's plenty of evidence out there for the business imperative. The research after research tells us that the more diverse businesses and teams not only generate more revenue, but they are more engaged, they make better decisions, they outperform less diverse teams. A quick Google search can easily kind of give you plenty of bolstering information if you need to take it to your administration. So you've certainly got that. And then we've got your why. So we mentioned earlier that there are probably a lot of different reasons why people are in this room today, why you guys took time out of your lunch time to come and listen to us. Maybe it's that DEI and those kind of concepts personally relate to you. Maybe you're a person of color, you're within the LGBTQIA+ population, or you're a veteran. So maybe it personally connects with you. Maybe you're noticing your own equity gaps within your own programs and communities, or you're noticing some inequity that's in health outcomes that's in your community. Or maybe you're here because you recognize that you need to address the business case within your organization. There are a million other reasons, and really, truly, the most important thing is whatever your reason is, DEI simply matters. When DEI gets tough, and it will, inevitably it will, you have to have a why to hold on to. And so picking yours off of this, thinking about your personal why, using that as a touchstone is really, really important, so that when it gets tough, you've got something to hold on to keep you going. And so a couple of questions I just want to ask really quickly is, if we're not talking about this kind of stuff, who is? How can we expect our students to serve our more diverse patient populations and our more diverse communities if we're not providing education on it in our simulation programs? How can we expect our students to grow into leaders and address community barriers to healthcare if we're not introducing these inequities and having these conversations within our simulation curriculum? Embedding these concepts of DEI in our simulation curriculum ensures that our students are better equipped to care for the diversity that they will inevitably encounter when they get out into practice. So you're on board, right? You're obviously here. You want DEI in your program. You're in the driver's seat. You're ready to blaze this new trail. You're ready to go along with this analogy with us. But the question then is everyone? Unfortunately, so many people think that DEI is a one-person game, that this is something that, maybe you here are a DEI champion for your organization, and they think that you're the one that gets to, on top of all of your other duties, you're the one that gets to do it. In some way or another, though, you have to get all of your faculty on board. You have to get them bought in some form or fashion in order to keep your DEI car running and kind of keep on that journey. So before we can really start that, you have to get your people in the car. You have to get them as a part of that journey. And so Anna's going to take it away.
So before we talked about, DEI is the pathway, the journey, right? And your car that you've picked, and all of you have picked wonderful cars, are your people, your faculty buy-in. And now we're going to talk about the support. We're going to start with fuel. So just like Joanna was saying, now we've got our car. How do we get people in our car to go on this journey with us? It's important to understand that DEI journeys and the people who are a part of them are not all the same. Okay, so we all know that we have different kind of cars that we've picked that use different kinds of fuel. Maybe they don't actually use gas or fuel. Maybe they use electricity. Maybe they use diesel or something like that. But we know that we need something to power our car to go down this journey. So just like we have different cars that takes different types of fuel, there are different degrees of faculty buy-in for DEI. So there are two types of faculty that we're going to talk about. The first type is people that are interested in implementing DEI. And in the next few slides, we'll talk about people that are maybe uninterested in implementing DEI for various reasons. So this first type of person is your fuel at this point, right? We're going to focus on those that are interested. Your faculty that are interested in DEI for your SIM program are the catalyst, the gas, the people that are going to get you going, okay? But you need to value those people in whatever package that they may come in, because there are different types of fuel. right? So you may have new or experienced faculty that are interested in implementing your DEI. You may have new or experienced just faculty in general, right? But more than likely, most will be new in at least one of these areas, if not both, and having these interests. So regardless of their level of buy-in, maybe that's a little or a lot, or their experience level with this, you have to meet your people where they're at and fuel their interest. So with your folks that are interested, we are fueling their passion, fueling their interests. So I want you guys to think about some of your passions, your interests in DEI and implementation of this.
All right. So really quickly, I want you guys to just kind of think back, regardless of whether you've been an educator for 2 years, only a year, for 20 years, or somewhere in between. Kind of think back to when you were a new faculty, or a new staff member, new admin person. Think back to when you were a new simulationist. I know that I was beyond overwhelmed. I can probably say the same thing for Anna. I had the pleasure, the privilege of being a new faculty and a new simulationist all at the same time. So that was my double whammy. I think it's really important, though, just to kind of always remember what you needed whenever you were new in those positions, whether it was moving from the clinical setting to the simulation setting, or whether you're moving from a faculty position to an administration position. There are those learning curves that are associated with it, and DEI is absolutely no different. Especially for those of us who maybe we've been in nursing education for a little while. This is brand new, and DEI changes a lot, and it's very humbling. And so making sure that you're just being there to really support your faculty, especially when we're talking about the fuel. So we're talking about these ones that they are interested. They want to somehow get involved. We have to be able to really support them to set them up for success. And so we wanted to give you guys some actionable things to walk away with. I've certainly listened to a million webinars that talk a lot in kind of theoreticals, and we wanted to make sure that you guys, there are some things that maybe we've done here that maybe you guys can use in your program, or just give you some examples that maybe you can incorporate into your program that might help with your buy-in of your sim faculty. So a couple of things we thought of were, if you've got some new faculty that are interested, encourage them to participate in some sort of new DEI-related scenario pilots that you do. We have a policy and procedure here that anytime we develop a new scenario, like if Anna is one of our faculty that develops a new scenario, we have to pilot it on either former students or students that have already been through that course, and faculty to get feedback from that. But if you've got somebody that is really interested in it and you're piloting, especially something that's got a big tie to DEI, let them be a part of that and let them really participate in that so that they can glean some of that passion and that interest. If you've got some new faculty that are very interested, also you can really encourage them to give feedback. I don't know about y'all, but I know that there was no way I was ever going to give any feedback or talk at all in any faculty meeting in like my first 6 months to a year. There was no way. And though you find your voice after a while, being able to really tell your faculty and then backing up those words with actions that we value your feedback, your input matters, your perspective matters, that tenure and seniority have no bearing on the perspective that you can bring to us is really, really important. I really make a habit of telling a lot of our newer faculty, your voice matters, truly. We want you to speak up and offer some things to us. Another example is if you get pushback from administration or outside sources, stand by your faculty. And this is me kind of coming from the administrator side a little bit, but regardless of whether you're a faculty or a staff member, by all means, make sure that you're supporting your people. There is nothing that I have seen quite like, or that undoes trust quite like an administrator, a leader, whether they're formal or informal, failing to protect or support their colleagues or support their people. And so again, I say DEI is a very uncomfortable area to be in. We're going to make mistakes. And so when people make mistakes, throwing them under the bus is not the place to go. So making sure that you're giving them that opportunity to stand next to them and learn together. Then on the working to your strengths side of it, Each and every person that makes up your team, and you guys know this, they have their own special set of strengths. And so I'm going to take a quick little commercial break because this is what, this is how Anna and I communicate all the time.
Yes.
Our little brains are all over the place, but there is something we do we'll talk about these evaluation days later in the presentation that we do at the end of each semester with our SIM faculty. And last year before the evaluation day, I asked our simulation faculty if they could send me a couple of things that they felt like they were really good at in simulation, and then maybe like a one area that they thought that they really needed to work on the most. And so of that, I spent a ridiculous amount of time creating avatars for each of them. And I made them into their SIM superpowers. And so I made these avatars look a lot like them. And I really kind of surrounded them with those superpowers, or the things that they thought that they were good at, and then labeled what they thought their kryptonite was, which was their area that they could develop most. And it was really intriguing that some people thought that they were really good at debrief, and some people thought that that was their kryptonite. And so really kind of sharing the strengths and weaknesses of each of the faculty can be really helpful. Some people may be really good, like Anna, at developing new scenarios. She is like we kind of hit the jackpot with that. She comes up with really great ideas, and she's able to run with those when she comes up with them. Maybe you have people that are super innovative or super tech savvy, or people that are really good at giving constructive feedback, or that are really good at having the difficult conversations in the debrief setting. You really have to play to everybody's strengths if you really want to get the outcomes and get them to get their outcomes from their efforts. So some examples here are just have short meetings with your faculty. I love face-to-face. And so one-on-ones just to kind of find out what their interests are, and asking them to identify what's an interest this year. What's your SIM focus this year, or your grant focus this year, or your DEI focus this year? That way you can find out what their strengths are and help them play to it. You may have a faculty member who has a personal draw to a particular area. Let's say they're super interested in working with veterans, or they're super interested in working with neurodivergent patients. Get them and get to know their personal interests, and get them to bring those passions with them to work. Put them to work in simulation. Couple examples here. If you have a faculty that has an autistic child, and they want to create a simulation for your PEDS rotation and SIM, great, go for it. Let them have a long leash with that and run with it. If you've got a faculty member that's a student of color, or that's a person of color, and they want to collect perception data from the scenario to address health outcome disparities in your med-surg course, great, let them run with that. Or if you've got a faculty or staff member that's a first-generation college student that wants to create some sort of experience that targets education of low health literacy communities through virtual reality, again, let them run with it. I say again, because it's like whether you're a formal leader or an informal leader, really just allowing people to play to their strengths, it fills their cup. And we can kind of keep with the car thing, it can kind of fill their tank up and allow them to kind of pour into themselves a little bit more. But once you know their interest, you let them play to those strengths. Or when those opportunities do come to your attention, and you're at a table, let's say, with decision makers and that kind of stuff, pull them in, give them a seat at the table, and allow them to then be the person that kind of runs with that.
Yeah, so before starting this slide, a little commercial break again, as Joanna said. She mentioned about making the avatars for us, right? And spending a crazy amount of hours doing that. It was well worth it. So my kryptonite that I put in was time management. Okay. And funnily enough, she put a picture of the white rabbit off of Alice in Wonderland on my avatar, because I'm always running around doing all the things. So that really leads it well into the slide, and I'll get to that in just a second. So we're talking about our spare tire here. You're all fueled up, you have your interested faculty on board, right? But there are still a few people standing outside of your car. So how do we get these people bought in? How do we get them into your car? Remember that we're all different, and we all have different interests and a set of values as well, and that's okay. However, not everyone will be ready to jump in your DEI car, no matter how fun we make it look, right? Great pictures, all the things. But maybe you have some faculty who feel that it's unnecessary or even overwhelming. That's where my little white rabbit comes in, right? So maybe they're overwhelmed. They have a lot on their plate. Maybe they feel that it's unnecessary. Maybe you have faculty who are so new to your organization that they don't have the bandwidth to dive into something new at this point. That could also go back to the white rabbit. They've got so many things on their plate that they're trying to learn right now that how can I add one more thing to that? It's just too much. So as Joanna said before, DEI work is hard work. It can be uncomfortable and it can force perhaps unwanted critical reflection of yourself, right? And within your student population as well. So because of the nature of the DEI work, you may encounter some pushback, as we talked about before. You may have faculty who are simply just not interested in DEI work for simulation. And that's okay. How can we get them into our car, right? You can't carry the added workload associated with DEI work due to turnover, high workloads, all the things that everybody in here is probably used to or has heard about at least. So how do we avoid these possible blowouts?
All right, so this just goes back to the actionable things here. So when we're talking about really trying to get, like, avoid these blowouts and get your otherwise uninterested folks in the car, the big thing is just find your way in. And there are other avenues. I mean, just continuing to do the same thing. If it's not working, let's find a different way. And so for our faculty that are giving pushback or that just aren't on board, the different avenue that we can take here is DEI gets a bad rap that it's only related to the hot button issues of race, of sexual orientation. And so really reframing it for them can be very helpful. It's not just black and white. It's not just gay and straight. There is so much more that DEI encompasses that people just don't oftentimes get. We have had personal experiences here with faculty who, and it is okay that they don't want to touch any kind of race-related simulation or LGBTQIA+ simulation. But then when you're able to turn that for them and say, hey, actually, I know that you're really interested in the veteran population. Would you be able to incorporate that or work that into your scenario? Real life, that's the stuff that can begin to get them on board. And so just letting them know it's okay that they're not interested in this or this. Have you thought about this? And this just goes back to what I talked about earlier, getting to know what their interests are and playing to those strengths. And then for our faculty who are burdened with high workloads, perhaps from turnover, we all know that nursing education is high turnover, definitely high workloads. I'm sure a lot of you guys are probably shaking your heads in this moment. You really just have to, again, try to find your way in and find some areas that they're interested. So here's the thing here. I like to just start by trying to provide just small doses of interesting information to these folks, give them the idea of some cool projects that they can informally plug into without an added responsibility or obligation. And I think that that's the hard thing. Anna and I are really bad about that. We know how to say no, but when we're really passionate about something, we want to say yes. But so giving like those small doses and trying to offer some opportunities that don't necessarily have additional obligation stamped with it can be helpful. So providing any data or outcomes you have from your DEI efforts to show its value, not only to the students, but to the program. There isn't a faculty meeting that goes by that when I'm giving the sim director report that I don't talk about some sort of data, whether it's student eval data or research data or stuff that's related to like our DEI initiatives. That way our faculty just kind of keep that in their head. And if one day they feel like their workload is where they can jump on something else, that they can join us. But providing those little micro doses of fulfilling work and showing the value of DEI and SIM can pull some of those faculty in from the fringes. And then lastly here, to kind of avoid a blowout, it's just about culture. We really have to cultivate a culture of open communication, of vulnerability, and of confident humility, especially within the sphere of DEI. So none of us knows everything about anything, truly. I am a little averse to even using the word expert, certainly not within the realm of DEI. Everything changes so often. We should just be in that constant mindset of learning and always just learning more. So it's really about building that culture with your team and just letting them know that we're open and we're all going to learn and we're going to grow together. When we're talking about open communication, this is just going to ensure that everybody's voice is heard and that all those concerns or hesitations, that kind of stuff, questions, all of that we're fielding together. And to tie in the car analogy here, it doesn't matter how loud the car gets. Everybody deserves the opportunity to speak up, even if their voice shakes, and to be heard. And so just, again, not only telling your faculty that, but then practicing that you're able to give and receive that open communication. For vulnerability, it's really just ensures that everybody is able to learn from their mistakes. DEI work takes a lot of critical reflection, a lot. It provokes a lot of feelings, at least for me, and I'm sure for many of you, of inadequacy, of imposter syndrome. I know when we developed our transgender simulation about 2 years ago, there was a lot of feelings of inadequacy because we were not familiar with that portion of the population and we didn't want to do it wrong. So really just holding a safe space for vulnerability and for mistakes is essential to embedding DEI in your simulation program. Just like we want our students to make mistakes in simulation, so too do we want our faculty to make mistakes so that they are able to learn from them. And then the last thing is confident humility. So I recently read this book, Think Again by Adam Grant. It is just a fantastic read. I would highly recommend it if you haven't. And there's a really good quote in there from him. It says, having the faith in our capability while appreciating that we may not have the right solution or even be addressing the right problem. Being that leader or team member that models this level of confident humility can really help make others feel more comfortable in that often kind of treacherous and uncertain DEI space. Even when obstacles are encountered, having the confidence to appreciate and embrace the unknown, a lot of that will help cultivate that team, especially one with a growth mindset. DEI is ever evolving. We might not have the right solution or even be addressing the right problem, but you and your team are on this road together. So I hope you guys have seen there's a little bit of commonality that's kind of popping up that you've likely noticed. But regardless of your faculty's level of buy-in, you have to support them. Your interested and uninterested people alike. This is a way that we can use data, and that data can come into play.
Okay, y'all. We love data. We love it so much that we had to give it its own slide. Okay.
Yeah, what's up?
Let me tell you a little bit about why we love data. It's because it drives evidence-based changes and it's essential to use in nursing education, right? And you're all like, okay, yes, I have to keep up to date on my evidence-based practice. I have to look at all these numbers, but it's relevant and it will help with your faculty buy-in, certainly. So we want to help you with learning how to harness the power of your data and harness the power of your and your faculty's interests in DEI. So you all know that students are really able to tell when a person is lecturing or doing a simulation that they're not interested in, right? Versus something that they're passionate about. So that really goes into our students, and in the same light, you need to harness the power of your faculty's interest and passions to drive your program change and outcomes. Because if your faculty is not interested, then how can you expect anybody else to be interested in it? So here are a few ways that we started using data to drive our program change. First, I want to talk about, Joanne already mentioned that we created a transgender client scenario, and we used data from the U.S. Transgender Survey. There was specific data from Arkansas, and so there's specific data from each state listed in this survey. And one of the things that really popped out to us was that 35% of the people that answered from Arkansas who saw a healthcare provider in the last year reported having at least one negative experience, whether that was related to they were refused care or they had to teach their healthcare provider how to care for them. Another thing that popped out to me was that in the last year, 29% of the respondents from Arkansas did not see a doctor when they needed to because of fear of being mistreated. So I use this data in the scenario to have my student buy-in, to make it relevant for them. But in the same light, you need to do the same for your faculty. Pull this data out, show the data of whatever DEI that they're interested in. Just like Joanna was talking about those little micro doses, if she finds something that is interesting or that she knows that one of her faculty members are interested in, such as transgender client care, she'll send it to me. Hey, I found this data, or hey, I see this. And that really helps with our buy-in and supporting our passions. So another example is the Arkansas mortality statistics for your maternal mortality. So this data came out in 2021. It was collected in 2018 from the Arkansas Maternal Mortality Review Committee. And Joanna has really taken the lead on the simulation that we are creating to really address healthcare disparities between white and Black people. So in 2018, 19% of all births in Arkansas were to Black non-Hispanic women. Out of that 19%, 37% of pregnancy-associated deaths in Arkansas in 2018 were to those Black non-Hispanic women. And that is a huge number that should not even be there, right? But showing faculty that are passionate about this data and this information really helps with driving your program changes. So let's talk about OL, because it's my favorite word. So with your OL change, how do we sustain our momentum and keep yourself and your faculty on this journey, right? We have to focus on preventative maintenance. Now, there's a little sticker in your car that tells you when you should get your oil changed. Do I do that all the time? No, but we should, especially having those checkpoints for faculty members, staff members, everybody that's involved in this journey, okay? So just like your faculty who are uninterested in DEI and STEM can cause a blowout, your interested faculty, so your fuel, remember that we talked about before, could become overwhelmed and run dry as well, just as Joanna mentioned. So like I said, the key is to routinely have check-ins, checkpoints with your faculty. Some aspects of such preventative maintenance to stay on the road is going to be continued training and development, your engagement feedback, and then having a shared vision.
Okay, so bringing action to that when we're talking about an oil change, it's really just talking about the little doses of preventative maintenance that are going to give you your faculty the continuous support that they need. Just like you're going to do oil changes on your car occasionally, or just like you guys are doing preventative maintenance on your mannequins and that kind of stuff down in your simulation labs or simulation centers. This is what we need here. So here we're going to tackle just a few examples of what we have found that has worked. So specifically related to the continued training and development, hands down, probably the best thing I think I've done in all of my time here has just been the development of this PODS day. It is an end of semester evaluation day. PODS came from a book by Jocko Willink. He's a former U.S. Navy SEAL, and he put out a book called Extreme Ownership, How U.S. Navy SEALs Lead and Win. I read that several years ago, and in that they talk about how after military operations, they always come together for a post-operational debrief. So I obviously just kind of took that and adapted that for simulation. That is now lovingly called our PODS days at the end of the going forward, and just really kind of helps everybody just check back in, kind of fill their tanks up a little bit. And then we're able to talk about different things like fiscal year goals and allow them to kind of pick and choose where we're going in the future. We can talk about our DEI-related initiatives and where we want to focus our efforts in the coming year. So that is something that can be incredibly helpful. Then we have things like our new scenario pilots. Talked about that a little bit already. Getting your people to get involved in those. We do those as a part of our pods day when we have new scenario pilots. It again just allows us faculty to kind of check back in, to get the perspective from the students, to feel like a student again if they actually are having to be those actors. And it just really helps kind of flex their muscles and get a little bit more comfortable with uncomfortable conversations related to DEI kind of in that simulation space. For engagement feedback, we're going to focus here on the simulation evaluation surveys. That's been a big focus of ours over the last couple of years, and we finally have a simulation course-wide survey that all students have to fill out every single time they go through simulation. And I get it that like it's just really the most simple things that I know that we had a simulation faculty who had a hard day. This was earlier this semester. Things did not go well in simulation. They were a newer simulation faculty. And so I was able just to go into Qualtrics, which is just the platform that we use to gather the survey data, and just take some of the positive student comments that she had just gotten from that day and send those to her. I ended up sending it to all the simulation faculty that way, just as like a pick-me-up, because morale was just a little bit low. And just the feedback that I got from faculty, it's like I really needed that. I really needed to know that like I'm doing good. So it's just the small things, letting your faculty know that they're doing good. Don't just assume that they know. Sharing that engagement feedback is incredibly important. And then with a shared vision. So I know all these cute car analogies are great, but seriously, if you don't know where you're going, neither do your people. So having a shared vision is absolutely paramount, and it has to be a really big emphasis on shared here, because if you know where you're going, but everybody else doesn't, that's just as bad, right? We don't just want to drive around in circles without actually knowing where our path is taking us. So developing a shared vision for the future of DEI in your simulation program, it gives everybody something to look towards. And so maybe it's that like what we've decided, like eventually done. We used to pick 3 fiscal year goals. We realized 3 was too many, so now we've gone to 1. And a lot of times we can say, okay, like within the DEI sphere, what do we want to focus on this year? So it was transgender. Now we're going to be talking about maternal mortality. And that allows everybody that's interested to kind of come together and really, really get in on that. So developing that shared vision is essential. Some examples here that we can provide you guys is meet with your faculty at the end of each semester, like we do with these pods days. It doesn't have to be anything super formal. It can be super short. We make ours a whole day thing. I feed everybody. I know that people just like food, so that's part of the way I probably get them all to come. Get their feedback, your faculty's feedback, and allow them and their interests to help drive the direction of where your simulation program is going. That honestly, they get that buy-in because they know that they helped pick that goal. It is incredibly important. And then with that, showing your passion. Nobody wants to follow somebody that is not passionate, that's not excited. And I talked about it earlier. If you've got a faculty member that's up there that's a bump on a log and obviously doesn't want to be teaching that simulation that day, the students aren't going to get bought in. So show your passion, because truly that's what's going to translate most.
Okay. So today we've established that we have a successful road trip and a good time, right? Hence the music coming out of the car on your DEI journey. And you have to have 3 components. So first is your gas. So the buy-in of your DEI interested faculty, your fuel to get you onto the road to start your journey. Then you have your spare tire. So this is going to be your buy-in of your not so interested in DEI faculty. You want to avoid those blowouts because nobody wants to buy new tires, right? And then also a recent oil change to have continuous faculty support and to keep you on the road. You can't just start on a road and not have your checkpoints, your maintenance. So Once you've got all that, once your faculty are fully bought in, you're well on your way to your meaningful incorporation of DEI in your simulation curriculum. So now it's time to have your windows down and music up, and let's ride.
All right. So at this time, we would certainly like to kind of open it up if anybody has any questions. In case anybody has to pop off, we did want to show, of course, there are references, but there's our contact information if anybody is interested or would like to reach out to us at a later date.
Wow, so that was really fantastic. Thank you so much, Joanna and Anna. And I love the car analogy throughout. I'm a kind of a car guy, so I really enjoyed that. We did have someone that wrote in for a question. So we want to elevate our intention of integrating DEI in our sim scenarios. How can we create a diverse patient in a scenario without stereotyping?
That's actually a really good question. Somebody, we brought that up at the workshop at Odin about maybe, for instance, not always having your sickle cell patient be an African-American client. I think that this just goes back into kind of like what we talked about with the shared vision. You as the person that's selected or that gave that question, you aren't the only perspective that should be at that table making that decision. So maybe you come up with the idea, but then it's about inviting people in that don't look like you, that come from different backgrounds, that have different experiences, to really come in and say, okay, what if this, let's say, I see homeless person. So let's just say it's a homeless person, then just say, okay, here are 3 or 4 options about maybe skin color. What makes most sense here? And maybe it's just a reflection of what are you seeing out in your active community? And then from that, then kind of paring it down and allowing your defenses to be down when you're making those decisions. Like if you, for instance, selected a Black homeless person, if somebody comes back at you and says, well, perhaps this needs to be Hispanic because that's more reflective of our community, you need to be open to that. And so it's just about getting more players at the table so that you guys can have kind of diversity of perspective when you make those decisions.
Absolutely.
Great answer. I think that's all the time we have because I know we're up against it. I know Joanna and Anna have their contact information here. Any other questions can be sent to webinars@unboundmedicine.com. And there's also a survey as you log off. So we always appreciate, there's been a lot of feedback during the presentation, but there's your feedback at the conclusion of it. It would be really appreciated. So at this time, I just want to thank again, Joanna and Anna for a fantastic presentation, lots of takeaways here. And of course, everyone that attended today for taking their time with us. So thank you so much. Hope everyone.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you,
Have a good one.
Thank you, Unbound.
Bye, y'all.